Hey guys, if you're finding yourself questioning your reality after the last chapter of Attack on Titan, you're not alone. Are we ever going to get to the truth of this manga? Or does such a thing even exist? Let's talk about Chapter 88. Hey guys, and welcome back to DarkLogic Studios' Attack on Titan theories and discussions. Before we go any further, I want to give you fair warning that these videos are going to contain lots and lots of spoilers. So if you're not caught up with the manga, then what are you doing with your life? Seriously though, if you don't want spoilers, you should probably click on something else. If you're all caught up though, then let's get to it. Hey guys, and welcome back. So chapter 88, I gotta make a discussion video about this chapter, because this chapter was so interesting. The things that were discussed, and the things that were revealed in this chapter. I know you guys want me to kinda try to put things together and make sense of all this for you, and I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do my best. But we're gonna have to get into some deep, abstract shit here. So, put your thinking caps on, kids, because this is gonna be a workout for your brain right here. Alright, so first I'm gonna address a couple of things that most everybody's talking about right now, and that is the 13-year lifespan and Eren's connection with Eren. Kruger. So I really think that Eren was named after Kruger because of what he did for Grisha, and I think that Eren's memories, the way, and especially this panel when he's kind of sitting in Owl's place as he's talking about it, I think that this is all, it's what, we've been kind of talking about, and what's been suggested throughout the story, is that people, their memories, and maybe even their consciousness, lives on inside their successors. So in a way, Eren kind of does embody both Grisha and Night Owl, and Eren's got a little piece of every single shifter that has been, passed down these titans, both the coordinate and the attack titan, and so what I think is interesting too is that he's getting all these memories now because they were triggered by these books and all this information. So it makes me wonder, if Eren, under other circumstances, could have memories triggered from, say, the First King, for example, or from Yuri, or any of the other people who have had the coordinate previously, or the attack titan previously. He can theoretically potentially tap into the memories of any or all of these people, which makes me worry a little bit about Eren. Maybe that's why a 13-year time limit, because after 13 years you just go insane. Anyway, so yeah, but about that too, 13 years, it just seems weird for me, and at this point I feel like we should be taking every single bit of information we get out of this story with a grain of salt, because literally Isayama lied to us like at least twice in a row. like this whole story is we started out this story thinking that it was about the survival of humanity against some kind of monstrous force, some kind of inhuman force, but as we have found out after chapter 86, that this story, it's not about that at all. It's about us. It's our human story, really. It's about how we oppress each other and use violence against each other and perpetuate war and find ways to differentiate ourselves. So with that, and the tribalism and stuff like that. So Attack on Titan, I think, I'm veering off to what I was saying, but I think that really, I think if we're asking the typical questions that you would ask while reading a story, if we're asking those questions, like who's good or bad, who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, what's the truth, You know, if all we are doing is looking for answers and just expecting things to be explained to us, then we're looking in the wrong place. Because this is not, you know, clearly this is not the kind of story that's going to do that. You know, in most stories, you get, you know, you have a mystery, and you get clues here and there, and then you have your explanation. And usually you can just take that at face value because, you know, most stories won't bother to dick you around like Attack on Titan does. But that's the point. And like I was saying in the spoilers video, I was saying, you know, so much of it doesn't make sense, but is that intentional or not? And I think it is intentional. And I think the purpose of this, of telling us things and then revealing that it's not true, it's really Isayama's, he's challenging us. He's challenging us intellectually, he's challenging us morally, emotionally, and that's what's so great about this story, is it makes you think about these things and it asks you questions. It doesn't preach to you, it doesn't tell you what to think. It lets you decide, and it's so brilliant, I think, because, you know, it's so reflective on our own world and the things that he's saying, like this whole discussion about truth and stuff, all this discussion about good and evil. That is our world. There, everything is in a gray area, and really, it's hard to say what is the truth or not, you know? I mean, I can't tell you how many times throughout my lifetime, and like, I'm 30 now, and I can't tell you how many times that I have had my reality shattered, and I think that's a good thing. I think that everybody should go through that at least a few times in their life, because I think it's something that helps you grow as a person and kind of figure out this world a little bit. Although, again, like the story, it is kind of like the more answers you get in life, the more things kind of don't make sense, and the more you kind of realize that that's just kind of the way it is. You can't always make sense of everything, and I think that's one of the points of this story and these turns of events. He's making that point, and I think he's doing such a good job of really kind of emulating that feeling of uncertainty and wanting to believe something and finding out that it's not true, and like I said, like having your reality kind of shattered in that moment, like when we found out the information in the basement, like it was like, holy shit, like I just didn't know what to think. It was one of those moments where everything comes crashing down and you're like, what is real anymore? And you know, you have those moments in life, and you know what I'm talking about. So I think that that's just so amazing, and I love the way that he's able to convey that in this story. So yeah, I think that, you know, really, we should be thinking of this story not really so much as a literal story, but more in a metaphorical sense. It's like, this world of Attack on Titan, it's not really our world, but it's not really a world in and of itself. It's kind of a combination of the two. It's a reflection of our world back on us. And I was thinking about this too, about the map. You know, we had this little piece of the map with the island and the continent where the Marley are, and the fact that it looks like Africa flipped upside down and backwards. I don't think there's going to be any logical explanation for it in the story. I think that it's an analogy of how the story reflects our world back on us, and how everything is kind of backwards and upside down. And I think that's what it's meant to represent, our world so backwards and upside down, and this world is backwards and upside down. And I mean, do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but yeah, I don't think that it's like, there's no logical explanation for it unless you think of it as in more of an abstract way and what it represents, because like I said, I think there's a lot of metaphors and analogies in the story, like with the Titans and the walls. Like, you could interpret it in different ways, but I feel like maybe the walls themselves are kind of meant to represent the divide that we put between each other and the emotional wall that we put up in order to be able to do the horrible things that we do to each other and things like that. But keeping that in mind, if we move on to the idea, this concept that the Eldians are all connected by paths, what Aaron called paths, these invisible pathways in which the Titan ability can travel through. So what I've thought about while reading this is there is kind of this idea out there that is kind of like it's a very abstract kind of idea. You can say it's spiritual or whatever, but it's the idea, well, you know, that we all kind of are connected by some invisible force, some invisible whatever. There's one documentary called, it's been a while since I've seen it, but it's called With One Voice, and it talks about religion and spirituality, but it talks about kind of the underlying ideas behind it, and the idea that we are all connected, and that all of these from different religions and all these different ideas are all based on one reality, and that is that we are all connected and that we are all one, and we are all kind of in and of ourselves collectively, I guess you could say, God, or whatever your idea of God is, or I don't know. It's really complicated. It's kind of like vague and convoluted at the same time, but it's interesting to think about, and that's what it reminded me of. And too, I mean, if you think about stuff like even in science, like you think of evolution, you know, just recently they're saying that baby elephants were being born without tusks because of poaching, because elephants were getting killed for their ivory. And I mean, how bizarre is that? Like, how do they know that? I mean, I know elephants are really smart, but like, how does that transfer over to the next generation? It is like there has to be some kind of almost like genetic memory. Like, I mean, evolution is just amazing. It's such a bizarre thing that things that happen like in the physical world to these physical creatures can somehow transfer itself into their offspring and make changes to help them survive, you know. And the idea that baby elephants are being born without tusks is such a, it's like, how does this work? Is it because the elephants, they see this happen, they see that their friends die, and that these weird little creatures on two legs come and take their horns and nothing else, and then they remember that, so when they have their babies are not born with, it's just so weird, you know? So that's what that whole thing made me think of, and I think that's kind of what Isayama is playing with, is this idea that we're all connected. And I feel more and more like the whole thing about the Eldians being the only people who can use the shifter power, I don't feel like that's gonna be true. I just don't feel like that is really the kind of path that Isayama is going on. I don't feel like that's really the message that he wants to send. I think that we're gonna find out that this is not true, and that anybody can become a Titan shifter. But I mean, I could be wrong. Again, we have these Marleyan scientists who have apparently been studying the Titans and probably know a lot more about the Titans than the people inside the walls do. So I wonder what exactly they know about it. I wonder, too, how much of what they have studied and the conclusions that they've come up with, how much of that is actually propaganda as well. Because, you know, the Marley seem pretty dedicated to keeping the Eldians oppressed, so it's not too hard to believe that they would like order their scientists to or even the scientists are biased themselves, that they would have them forge fake research results and stuff like this to further their agenda. So, like, again, I feel like we gotta just take everything with a grain of salt in this story. Like, nothing we know could be true. And that was like, I think that was like the whole point of this conversation between Kruger and Grisha, is that he you know, threw all this stuff at us, like, and just, like, acting like this was the explanation for the Titans. And it's kind of funny because he almost kind of trolls us, like, but, you know, I'm okay with it because there is a purpose behind it. It's not like he's just fucking with us. He's making points. He's making valid points that are relevant to the world and our lives, and he's trying to get us to think about this stuff and challenge us to think about it and challenge our emotions and really kind of help expand our understanding of these different concepts, which is something that I really appreciate about his writing and why I love his writing so much. It's just like, it's like the perfect story for me, let me tell you. But we stop talking about existential shit for a moment and get more into the specifics of it. Let's talk about the children who are born with the shifter power if somebody dies. This was another thing that was brought up. This is such an interesting thing because what it means is that potentially anybody could be a shifter. Anybody we know. So, because we have two titans, one or two titans, depends on whether you think the quadrupedal titan is actually intelligent or not, but we have at least one titan who has not yet been revealed. We have no idea, we haven't even had any hints about who this titan might be, and now we've had this information dropped on us that people can inherit the power if a shifter dies. They can just be born with the power, and it could be anybody. It doesn't matter like who you're related to or whatever. It's just random. So this titan or these titans have been missing in action for we don't know how long. So we don't know if a shifter died. We don't know how long ago that person died. We don't know if that's the case yet, but I think it's gonna be, because why would they bring it up otherwise? So we don't know how long the shifter has been dead and how old this person who inherited the power might be. So literally it could be anybody we know, which I think is kind of exciting because like it brings the whole, it's kind of brilliant because it brings the whole mystery back into who might be the last Titans, because based on what we knew before, it seemed like it either had to be someone in the background or another Marley warrior that we haven't seen yet or whatever, or another Eldian shifter that we haven't seen yet. So here's what I'm hoping for. I'm really hoping it's Levi. Like, I don't know if that would make any sense, but ever since it was revealed that people could be turned into Titans from the serum thing, I've always kind of hoped that Levi would become a Titan, because I really wanted to see Levi as a Titan. And when, like, you know, the whole like dilemma with Erwin and Armen happened, you know, I was glad that Armen was alive. I was interested to see him as a Titan. You know, I was sad Erwin died though too. It would have been cool to see Erwin as a Titan too, but, you know. When that happened, I was kind of thinking that I did not think that it would come down to like Levi having to choose between Armen and Erwin. Like, people had talked about it and theorized that that would happen, and I was like, nah, that'd be stupid. And it was kind of stupid, but I understand why it happened. Like, I get why what Islam was going for, and I think it was done well. I think it was done a lot better than I thought it would have been. so I'll take it. But I also thought that it was kind of a missed opportunity, because I I was so convinced for a while that Levi was just gonna end up injecting himself, because, I mean, he had, like, killed all these fucking titans and fought the beast titan, and he was out there in the middle of nowhere with all these fucking titans rushing him. But, you know, Levi's a badass, so he survived that anyway. Now, yes, I know Levi is an Ackerman. He's not an Eldian. He's not technically supposed to be able to become a Titan, if you believe what Kruger and Gross was saying. But, like I said before, I don't necessarily believe that it's only the Eldians that are affected by this. We haven't had proof of this yet. I think, you know, until we see somebody who is not an Eldian be injected and nothing happens, then I'll believe it. Like, I'm waiting for proof. I'm not taking anything at face value anymore. So yeah, I am gonna hold out hope that we might see Levi as a Titan by the end of this manga. I know it's a small chance, and if all of this lore is true, then it's not gonna happen, but I'm gonna hold out a little bit of hope. But yeah, but anyway, now that we now have this opportunity opened up again, that the last Titan shifter or shifters could be literally anybody. So some people are saying maybe it's gonna be Historia, and I don't know, that might make sense. She is a Reese, she is the last Reese, you know, unless Armen turns out to be a Reese. Which I'm still kind of holding out hope that might happen. But you know, Historia being the last member of the Reese family, the last person really of royal blood, that's gonna have to come back into play. Like, she's something significant is gonna happen with Historia, I think. I'm not sure what that's gonna be, but if she is indeed the last member of the Reese family, if they end up having to use the coordinate to defend themselves from the Marley, then she's going to have to become a Titan and inherit the coordinate, and that means eating Eren, which I do not think that's gonna happen. Like, I mean, I'm really worried about Eren, like, because of this, like, he's got the coordinate and stuff, but I think that like, if Historia ate Eren, and suddenly the story became, like, all, like, about Historia, I would not be interested in that at all. Like, I mean, Historia's just not one of my favorite characters. You know, I'm sure something's gonna happen, but I think it would be, that's why I'm hoping that Armen ends up being a Reese, and somehow we end up finding this out, because if Eren has to be eaten by somebody, I would want it to be Armen. That sounds so morbid, but you know, because I mean, that would be so fucking sad. That would be so fucking dramatic and, like, horrible, but that's why I would want it to be Armen, because, you know, Isayama, he's got to push those limits. You know he's going to. You know, he's got to make it as dramatic as possible. So if somebody is going to have to eat Eren, then if we want to push it to, like, the very limits of fucked uppery, then it has to be Armen. And I'm kind of thinking that might be what this is building up to, because Armen's already a Titan, but then again, if Armen ate Eren and could control the Titans, I don't think Armen would want to attack the Marley. I don't think he would do what the first king had threatened to do and unleash all the wall Titans. But then again, if Armen inherits the coordinate, if he's a Reese, he more than likely will be overtaken by the first king's will, and if he is, then it won't matter what he thinks. So, which, God, that would be so sad and so tragic, because, first of all, if Armen has to eat Eren, he has to eat his best friend, Eren's gonna be dead, and then Armen, he's not even gonna be himself anymore. He's gonna be taken over by the first king. He's still gonna be kind of himself, but he's gonna be like Freda and Yuri, where they just kind of became different people because of the First King's influence. But then again, if we consider Armen's intellectual abilities, who's to say that he might not be able to combat this somehow? Like, because of his intelligence and his mental willpower, maybe he might be able to resist the First King's influence. And if he's able to do that, then what if Armen could be the one who finally breaks the cycle of violence between the Marley and the Eldians? If Armen could utilize the power of the coordinate and the power of the colossal titan, and as we know now for certain, the shifter power, the specific power, is passed on. So Armen is in fact the colossal titan. We know that for certain now. You know, that in combination with Armen's intelligence and his understanding of these situations, and also the fact that this would make him royalty, all of this combined together would put Armen in the best possible position to try to negotiate with the Marley, to try to find some path to peace between these two societies. And I think Armen would be the only person, even without all this, who might have a chance of doing that. But this puts him in an even better position to try to get that done, because he will have all of this power, and hopefully he would be able to suppress the First King's influence and use the coordinate for good. Use it in a way that's not going to perpetuate all the death and all the war and all the violence. Now granted, it would be sad, it would be awesome, but it would I think it would be awesome, but it would be sad because Eren would be dead, but not really, because Eren would live on inside of Armen. So, but I don't know. Still be pretty messed up, but anyway. God, and then there's gonna be Mikasa in all this. Oh, fuck, man. I need to stop. I'm making myself sad again. Okay, but anyway, moving on. So, that brings me to another question, though. So, we know that if a shifter dies, nobody inherits their power, it's born into a new baby. But my question now is, what happens if somebody has two shifter powers like Eren does? He's got the attack titan and the coordinate. It seems like if the power is being transferred to newborns and it's kind of connected through these invisible paths, it seems like the power itself is kind of it has to be, each power has to be possessed by an individual. And if someone has two powers, and these powers can theoretically travel between people, then who's to say that one of the shifter powers that Eren possesses has not been absorbed into these pathways and possibly inherited by someone else or transferred to someone else, assumingly a new child. And considering that Eren got these powers 5 years ago, it's had time, theoretically, to transfer itself to someone else. So, but there's no children in this story right now that really have any significance at the moment. So, I don't know. But it just makes me wonder, like, does he keep these two powers until he lets someone else inherit it, and then they have those two powers? That doesn't seem like that doesn't sound cohesive to how it seems like this works, because, like I said, it seems intentional. The powers themselves seem to intentionally want to possess an individual, each one an individual. And I mean, if somebody has two of these powers, it's kind of like that shifter dying, because one of them is kind of obsolete. It's not being utilized, so who's to say that it's not going to move on to someone who can utilize it? That being said, we know that Eren still has possession of the attack Titan, because that's his Titan form, and these are the memories that they're getting, these are the memories that he's getting from Kruger. But he hasn't gotten any more memories from the Reese family for a while now. So maybe the coordinate, maybe Eren does not have possession of the coordinate anymore. Maybe the coordinate went somewhere else, to a new baby, or even, who knows, even somebody who's an adult. We don't know. Everything is a lie. But, yeah, so those are some possibilities. But why did Grisha apparently live over 13 years as a Titan shifter? Why is it that Zeke seems to be, Grisha left the walls 20 years ago. Zeke was roughly around 5 to 7 years old. So he's in his mid to late 20s now. If he got the Titan shifter power when he was young, like Annie and Reiner and Bertolt did, which you would assume that he would have, because they're all warriors, you'd think that they'd all go through the same training and procedures and stuff. But if he did get it when he was very young, Zeke should be dead by now. But he's still alive. So, like, it doesn't add up. So, I'm gonna say that either it's complete bullshit, the 13-year thing, or Grisha probably did find a cure or something to stop it. Now, that being said, if Grisha did discover a cure, he would have most certainly included it in these notebooks. And if, say, the next chapter we found out that there was a cure for this, then it would be completely pointless to bring up in the first place. So that makes me think a little bit more that it could be true. But then again, as I said before, Zeke, maybe the Marleyan scientist did find a cure. And as someone pointed out in the comments, that Zeke said to Eren, "I'm gonna save you." So presumably when Zeke saw Eren, he knows he's a shifter. He knows that he's on limited time. Zeke has apparently avoided this apparent death sentence. So I do think that that might be the case, that what he is saying is, I'm gonna save you from dying, because I know you're gonna die. It still doesn't explain why Grisha apparently survived over 13 years with the shifter ability. Keith said he met Grisha 20 years ago, which was 5 years after Grisha had died. Grisha was in the walls for 15 years. Now, unless Keith was off by a couple years, and it was actually closer to 18 years, then Grisha would be on the very brink, really, of the end of his lifespan as a shifter. So, that could be a possibility, I guess. But, as Armen pointed out as well, the Reese family aim to have a succession every 13 years, so presumably every person who's had the coordinate only had it for 13 years. So, it's hard to say. It seems like it should be true, based on what we've been told, but again, without any hard evidence, it's hard for me to believe anything. We haven't actually witnessed any of this in the story yet. We've just been told these things, so are these facts, or are they opinions? That's what Kruger is asking, I think. He's basically saying that none of this stuff is really the truth. Could be based on some truth, but really, all of this is just opinions. The Marley history books are opinions. The supposed ancient Eldian texts are just opinions. We don't even know if they're real or not, or if Kruger just forged them. But he brings up the opinions of the Marleyan scientists, which is this idea of paths and stuff like that. So it's all just opinions. None of it's really fact. And two, another thing about the Marleyan scientists is Grisha brings up blood tests, and Kruger tells him that he had to forge his medical records in order to infiltrate the Marleyan military. And so if we assume that it is an undeniable fact that there is some kind of genetic difference between the Marley and the Eldians that you can detect with blood tests. Now, I'm not like a scientist or anything like that. I'm not like an expert, but genetics is a complicated thing. DNA and stuff. I mean, it's not really specific what they look at to determine whether someone is a Marley or an Eldian. It could be anything, really. And whatever that is, it doesn't necessarily mean that gene or that genetic anomaly or whatever you want to call it pertains to the Titans themselves. Who's to say that just because there's a difference that means that specifically? I mean, what if it's just some benign difference between the genes of a Marley and an Eldian that doesn't really have anything to do with the Titans? Like I said, all of this stuff about the Marleyan scientists could be influenced by propaganda as well. They could be contributing to it and furthering the idea that Eldians are somehow evil. And the main reason that I feel like this can't be true is because Isayama, one of the main themes of the story, he's been showing us over and over again that no matter what side you're on, there's no such thing as good and evil. I know I've said this over and over again, but I feel like I want to really hammer in this point because I feel like a lot of people are missing it. Every character is relatable, every character is human, and every character has their own motivations and their own point of view. Although, there are certain people who just plain delight in the suffering of others, like Sergeant Gross. What an appropriate name. But anyway, what's interesting too is that in this story, we've spent all this time with these characters, getting to know these characters and seeing and experiencing what they're going through with them and their fight to save humanity and to help humanity survive. All this time with these characters that we've grown to love and that we've connected to and root for, and we become invested in their hopes and their dreams. We become very attached to these very human characters. And now, what this is telling us, what the story is telling us in this moment, is that these characters are not human. That these characters, these very human, well-written human characters, are not human. That they are evil or considered subhuman in some way because of this supposed curse. And asking, are we really willing to accept that? Are we really going to say that these characters who we have connected to as human beings are not human? Or are we going to reject that notion? And what does it say? What does it say about us, depending on what we choose? The idea, the whole notion that an entire group of people are evil, the idea that there is some kind of genetic difference that makes them different from other humans, that makes them not human. All of these things, these are things that people in real life, in certain groups that are discriminated against, these are things that they are often accused of. These are things that people who want to discriminate against other groups say in order to justify their attitudes towards them. This is stuff that happens in real life. It's not just in this story. Like I said, this is our story. This is what we do as societies, as a species, because part of us is we're still animals. Even though we got these big brains, we're still animals. And so that's why I think it's not gonna be true, because it's just with the themes and the things that have been addressed in this story, it's again, I think he's playing with what we're willing to believe, and maybe even asking us to question why we're willing to believe it. So I think that maybe there's a very good chance that the Marley are using the Titans to oppress these people, to discriminate against these people for whatever reason. And who knows what that reason really is. We may never know. So, and like I said in the beginning of this, if we are asking the questions, who's the bad guy, who's the good guy? If we're looking for answers, if we are looking for the truth to just be handed to us on a silver platter, it's not gonna happen. Isayama, he's not going to make it that simple, because the world isn't that simple. We have to figure out the truth for ourselves. We have to figure out what we really believe in. And I think the questions that we really should be asking is, what is Isayama trying to tell us? What is he trying to show us about ourselves and the world that we live in? What is the message he's trying to send us? What is this story meant to communicate? And what parts of ourselves do we see in these characters and situations? And the whole theme of this chapter, Kruger just got done basically telling us that nothing we know could be true. Pretty much everything we know could be a lie. And he's saying, don't just believe everything you hear. Think about it. Don't just believe what you want to believe. Don't just believe something because your father tells it to you, or someone of authority tells it to you, or because some shadowy figure in the background is telling it to you. Think for yourself and understand how elusive the truth really is. He's trying to get us to think about things as a society, as individuals, that we already know but fail to understand. Well, at least that's what I think he's going for. Again, this is just my opinion. Thanks so much for watching this video. I know it was long, I know the review was really long too, but kudos to you if you got all the way through it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments. Now I'm going to do a part 2 to this discussions video, and the second part I want to include your guys' theories, your ideas of what all this could mean. I was thinking about doing something like this before this last chapter came out as part of my 500 subscriber special, but I didn't have time, and I'm kind of glad about that because with this chapter we have a lot more interesting stuff to talk about. So make sure to share your theories, tell me what you think is really going on, and if I like your theory, then it might end up in the next video. Tell me your thoughts about these last 3 chapters having to do with Grisha and all this information that we've been getting, and tell me what you think. We spent a lot of time talking about what I think about these last few chapters, but I really want to involve you guys more into the videos because you guys already contribute a lot to this channel from already sharing your theories and ideas. You know, a lot of time I'll refer to things people will said in the comments, but I'll forget who actually said it, and sometimes it's kind of hard to go back and find the specific comments. But I'm going to go through all the comments on this video and the previous videos about the past few chapters, and I'm going to pick out some of your guys' theories, and I'm going to compile them in a video. I'm going to talk about your guys' theories and how your ideas might fit into the manga. So if you got something on your mind, make sure to share it in the comments below. So make sure to come back in a couple weeks for part 2, but in the meantime, I have 2 new theories videos planned, one for next week and one for the week after the part 2 of this video. Now the first one is one that a lot of you guys have been asking me to do, something that a lot of people have been talking about, especially after Armen ate Berdult. I want to make a video about Annie. A lot of people are wondering, is she going to come back? What's going to happen with Annie? Is she just going to stay stuck in that damn crystal forever? So, you guys asked for it, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to take a look at Annie, see what I can figure out about her, and whether her story is going to be continued and where it might go if it does. So come back next week for that video. And the second theories video is going to be about who the last shifter is going to be. I talked a little bit about that in this video, but since I've been working on this video over the past week as I've been editing, I've come up with some new ideas on who that person might be, and I'm going to explain who I think that is and why I think it might be that person. So look for a theories video about Annie next week, part 2 of this discussions video featuring your theories the week after that, and then the theories video about who the last shifter might be. If you're interested in all that, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss them. Again, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for 600 plus subscribers. Thank you for all your support and your engagement with this channel, and I will see you next time. Peace.